as we troubleshoot some LinkedIn gremlins. My name is Marshy, or Luke Marshall. I work at Pointer, and I want to talk about AI growth systems and what works and what doesn't, and sort of where to focus. It's fair to say 4 months of this year that there's been renewed interest in AI and what it can do. This is largely through that came with Opus 4.5 in November. And since then, it's been release after release after release. And if you feel overwhelmed, don't worry. I feel overwhelmed. The biggest thought leaders in the world feel overwhelmed. And if you're here today, you've probably got a bit of curiosity about growth systems, AI-powered growth, or the term go-to-market engineering. And today, I just want to demystify this, give you a sense of what works, what doesn't, and where you can actually focus things to get results for your real customers or for yourself. That's basically what we want to do. And so the AI world has a hype problem. When we see these demos, and I've just picked on one, a random person on LinkedIn, they make things look easy. It's usually in a finalized demo. It got some outrageous numbers. And I just want to stress that if you're after something like that, this is not the presentation for you. Building these systems is anything but a button and easy. The polished sort of stuff that you see in may or may not work, and usually hides weeks, if not months, of iteration and judgment calls. And so what it actually takes to build an AI system, I think, is deep domain knowledge of the area you're driving growth in. So usually industry expertise, technical nous, you need to be on the tools and following this space very discernment. So one group of tools I could recommend, a group of today won't fit the business A versus business B. You need to be discerning and understand what tools are the right tools for the job. You really need sort of have strong solving mindset around this stuff. And I think underpinning all of this and sort of any team or organization you're working within or with, there needs to be a layer of trust, because I guarantee you the first pass of an AI growth system will deliver really underwhelming initial results, and trust things fritter pretty quickly. And I think because of all these components and what it actually, my spicy take here is this is why a keyboard jockey or some hacking on the tools is not going to be a right fit for a serious business. And so what's an AI growth system? Here's my definition. There's obviously heaps of them out there. A sales or marketing campaign mechanism that you can run repeatedly and have that run with AI executing some or all of it in a continuous improvement loop. And I think that last part's the really important bit. It's not set and forget or one and done. The real value will become on iterations of this loop, the 4th, 5th, or even 10th time. That's where the magic and gains can be got. And so this sort of concept and the one it can absolutely apply to sort of all go-to-market motions. Today, I'm just going to focus on outbound because it's what we've played with the most. But keep in mind, these principles will apply in other areas as well. You can do them across paid ads. If you take one thing away from today, it's that loop component, which we'll go to in a but that's, outbound's a good place to start. So what are the components of a growth system and sort of how to see it? One, you need an audience, target lists, people you want to attract. 2, you need campaigns and messaging. So there's a lot that goes into that. That can be the mechanics with what you're sending, how you send it, how frequently. I'll go in a bit of detail on that as well. Tools, I did talk about them earlier, and we definitely need tools for this job. And then feedback loops, or you could just call this rigorous analysis. So just a reality, again, if you're after a hype merchant or some quick hack, I don't have it for you. To set up a stack like this and get it going, you're roughly looking at around $500 to $1,000 in software costs alone for the first month. You can cut corners, and if you have a bigger TAM or a more generic audience, it can run cheaper, but you're going to have lower efficacy and potentially be at risk of spam. That doesn't include the time to sort of learn it, the time it takes for an operator to up. And I can't stress this enough. There are no instant turns. Anyone promising anything else, I think this problem was bad 12 months ago. It's now much, much worse. Everyone is inundated crap. And I'm going to show you a way to try and mitigate and avoid sending crap and make it far more relevant. Even the best case studies I've seen out of the US and hypertech and growth pretty closely, they're sustained. Lastly, this sort of process works, at least for outbound, the best with B2B and hard to reach decision makers because the rewards are the biggest. If you're selling something that is $50,000 to $100,000 per year, that is you don't need to shift the needle much for to see impact. If you're selling widgets for $50, good luck to you, but thanks. First component of an AI growth system is the audit. And so there's a bit that goes into this. First, you need essentially a list. Then we look for ways to enrich it with data and get more information and signals. And I'll talk through sort of what this means because a bit of jargon in what I just said there. So you need a list. So this is generally a cold list, and I sort of recommend multi lists are going to be really useful here. One way you can do it, is LinkedIn directly. So you could literally just go through and search in either LinkedIn free version or Sales Navigator, and manually find these people. And I'm talking about AI and growth systems here today. I'm not recommending that, but you can do it. Another way you could do it, if you're extremely above board and have infinite cash. As far as I know, Microsoft Dynamics has a native LinkedIn integration. You can plug that CRM in if you have the premium sales navigator and get the data that way. That is above board, 100%. And now below are more grey market things and definitely things that are in, I guess, if you're reading the breach of certain guidelines, but use your own will. And I sort of talk through some of the considerations and watch outs. Scraping, Apify is amazing. It used to be a very powerful tool and very developer centric. I'd argue since Claude in Apify and do sort of amazing things in terms of data and sourcing. There's alternatives to Apify, but definitely check it out if you're that one. It's really useful. Apollo, actually banned from LinkedIn for a while. It's like, it's sort of a just one size fits all third party. There's nothing amazing about this tool, but it does a lot of things. And if you're looking for an all-in-one and your market isn't that nuanced, well, the best of the best in this market is Firmable. Their data, it's extremely good. Highly recommend it. They're a friend of ours, definitely worth checking out. I've seen some other things happen. People have tried to get lists directly from LLMs, like typing in a Gemini or Claude, hey, I want this list of people. It doesn't work very well for very obvious reasons. And then another one I've seen is in-browser agents and Chrome extensions. So in browser, you can actually now tell your LLMs to control the browser and get data that way. I don't recommend it either. The other solutions are a bit better. So enrichment and signals, that part of the process, it's generally easy-ish to get an email, title, even a mobile phone number, but that's not going to really do, it's getting more competitive to get cut through. It's getting more competitive to get attention. And so you need signals. And signals to me are markers on one's online world that tell you they may or may not be interested. And so an example, if a prospect or someone you're targeting follows the Microsoft Dynamics social page, then you are fairly certain this person understands enterprise. That's a better signal than just going, it's not amazing, but these are the things that are available online that can really help you do some sort of really interesting things with AI. And when you combine all these things, tools like Clay are really powerful for this. Jerry rig this together with LLMs and then plugging into other APIs. And sorry, I'm getting a bit technical here, but to do the same. But what this will unlock for you, and depending on the niche and more signals you can use. So some great ones are competitor case. Recent job postings, particularly for technical roles, is actually super helpful. And Clay does a great job of siphoning that. And one we've tested and has worked is last 50 or 100 LinkedIn posts. And so, we're talking with their target is posts about AI in the last 100 posts. That's a pretty good conversation starter for this person. And so these are all tools you can do, you can get with tools like Apify and Scrape. It's sort of high value and worth the extra heavy lifting. And this part of the growth system is so powerful. It's something a keyboard jockey or hype merchant will miss. You need the domain expertise. So you need to know about the category or industry you're operating in. And you need the technical chops to be able to do and discover these things. And those two things combined can unlock things that make your campaigns smaller, more targeted, more nuanced, and helps you stand out against the sea of slop that we see out there. The next part of this growth system is the campaigns and messaging, and essentially the game perspective, and then match it with messaging that aligns to that against your target. And so the classic example, and this one's been done to death, started a new role in the last 3 months. Like, I joined at the end of last year. I've got a ton of these. I'd argue you can still do this, but you'd want to add some extra signals on this to make it work. One that you could test, and one with a client that I've sort of spoken with, sometimes I'll lie for like 10 years. That's tech moves pretty fast, and most categories are now. That could be a campaign angle for you, like going to their leader. Hey, you have a CRM specialist or someone leading your CRM has been there 10 years. How's that working out for you? Are you happy with everything? So yeah, there's ways you can be and flex create the data that you've got. And this is I think where the fun is that the magic starts to happen. Another example we spoke about with the prospect last year, they sell leadership. And so from talking with this person, it's very clear the companies they help and the ones that what they work best with is when they've got a problem. And one of the key signals or tells to this, sales leadership position and leading chair. If sales director role or sales leader role has been posted 3 times in 12 months, there's a bigger problem at play that this particular prospect can help with. And so it's not a talent issue, it would be a leadership issue. And that's where they could step in and say something like, hey, you're burning through heads of sales. Do you want some help? And that is right message, right time, right signal. This is where the game is won, but you have to run these things multiple times to be able to unlock that information. And so the tools and the way you can orchestrate this, there's plenty out there. This isn't even an exhaustive list. These are just the ones I've played and been very aware of. For outbound, for your cold email, you want instantly. They're both amazing. You can buy email accounts, warm up the domains, and do all sorts of fun things. And for LinkedIn, HeyReach is simply best for the price. Like it really is doing a lot of heavy lifting. For the list building, you can use all for your one size fits all, but I'd sort of recommend an Apify or alternative, other data source combined with a Clay or a Freckle. And this stuff just does a lot of the combinatorial magic that is required for this. And then orchestration, I have debates with my peer Nathan on this. He's Team Codex, I'm Team Claude Code. I've used it since it's got really strong, and I just think it does a lot of hefting. But it's not the only solution. You can use agent builders, you can use other LLMs, or if you're old school, which really is only like 12 months ago, you can use workflows and options like N8N for this. Now, moving more into the watchouts, absolutely hate this. Even looking at this, these are software that most organizations have. This stack officially usually sits outside org stack. It runs as a shadow sort of CRM. Even with that in mind, things that it can put it at risk. So if you're using your existing card for enrichment, that can have ramifications, your SOC and ISO compliance. If you just straight up ask your CTO if you can do this, they're going to say no. Like that's what they're gold and sort of incentivize on. So you're going to have to find a way to work around that. The rewards are there, trust me. But yeah, good luck navigating that. If you've got questions on that, I can probably help you a little bit more as well. But the magic around this isn't that first time you run the campaign. It will, by and large, stink. And so the feedback loops is where you sort of get to see them. So one way the feedback loop works is that if someone hasn't been contacted in the last three months or 6 months, whatever your cadence is, you just run a recontact with a new cam and see what happens. You can run evergreen stuff like, hey, want to subscribe to an app, want to keep in touch. Consistency and persistency is what it's not any single magic bullet, even though I gave signals here. Yeah, you look at this over a 6 or 12-month time horizon, not in the immediate aftermath. And I guess with the heavy lifting in the setup, doing what you need to unearth and discover what those key signals are, what you can get with the tech, can bound, because you've done the heavy lifting, then it's easy to introduce campaigns and things. One that I haven't mentioned yet, this classic is, if you're going to a particular niche conference, you can easily enrich previous attendees of the conference or people that follow the conference, hit them up, get those coffees, do the sales and get it going. This is one example that we use at Pointer. We do a few things at Pointer, but I thought it helped to shine a light on a stack. So, we use LinkedIn, Apollo, Firmwall, Apify for our audience gathering. We're plugging things through Clay and Apify and actually scoring with Claude Code. We're sending via HeyReach, although might introduce smart leads soon. And we're orchestrating this via, Claude Code as our sort of orchestrator, but then have agents evaluating the campaigns that are running as well. And for the feedback loop and keeping things, tweaking things and improving, we've got the data piping into Superbase at a holistic, so we can track things over time. And so when things that break, This is experience. Anyone that tells you that they're a bloody AI growth expert, an outright liar, this tech is old tops. I don't know any expert that is less than 3 years experience. Obviously, having previous industry and technical helps here, but things go wrong with these systems. This is where the trust comes in again. Accept it. Like you can't bank on 100% reliability at the start, and so that's too risky for the audience that you're going after. Don't do it, is the short and honest answer. Mention that, but if you do have that trust, you can mitigate some of the things that happen when things go wrong. And if you do have a small audience, like let's say a TAM of 500 or so, this is probably not the play for you. You need a bit more scale than that. You don't need super scale. You're not like spamming people, but you really need to work out what the creative angles are. And we've done that for a client, but yeah, it requires more conscious thinking. I don't know if how like sophisticated everyone watching this is, but just in case, don't run cold main domain ever. That's just don't do it. The ramifications, if you get blacklisted main domain, is an existential business. Like important client information through there, your invoice, you do not want that email address burned. And so you can mitigate that with the renting accounts with Smart Lead and Instantly. The other thing that I just want to include here, and it's a tricky one to solve for, is the copy. I would not recommend generating the copy running it. Ways you can make it sound more realistic, authentic, is training it on your messaging and templatizing some of the messaging so that you can get structure too wonky, and run things in tight loops at the start with small audiences just to make sure everything and running the way you want it. So yeah, like I promised, short and sharp, we're doing this with a number of client Pointer, and have been doing this sort of as well. Happy to answer any questions or throw it to the room. For anyone who's asking, we will share the slides with you as well. More than happy to set that up. Anything coming through, Ricky, or did we just burn ourselves with the technical stuff at the start?
No questions posted on LinkedIn yet. I think if anyone has questions, Luke, as always, we can.
Ooh, I think you just muted yourself somehow, Ricky.
There we go. Unmuted. If anybody has any questions, they can always pop into the community, the Go-to-Market ANZ community. We're discussing these things all day, and get your questions there. Otherwise, we do have one question. I saw just came up now. What guardrails do you think are important for agent orchestration?
Yeah, I think the guardrails is some sort of full prompting. So what are the must do's, must don'ts relative to the industry that you're in, and sort of what your high level. I would keep agents that are building and campaigning from what we would call an evaluator. And the reason why it's sort of new area, but keep them separate, is as soon as this campaign agent gets more context window, it sort of marks its own homework. And what you want with an evaluator, way you want to set this up from a design and guardrails perspective, you want it to have less context. So if you're looking at it, okay, does this pass the barbecue test? That's going to be much more effective in sort of creating guardrails here as well. And you could, depending on the scale and how ambitious you are with your build, add a third agent that's just sort of spot checking with different parameters. To set this up is a lot easier than it used to be. It's sort of just, you ask, a Claude Code or equivalent, design an agent that does this, design an agent that does this. And the bit that sort of is some of the magic stuff is you get the evaluator agent to give back to this agent, just a score out of 10 or 100 and a few lines, loop repeatedly, 5, 10, 15 revolutions, whatever you want, until it gets its score. And you can do something like this prior to against real people. It does get really powerful quickly. And I think once you get the hang of looping, it becomes extraordinarily powerful even before you start running things.
Fantastic. We do have another question, and I'll just add on top of that. Your looping, you can work across various LLMs. So if I'm asking anything, I always say, hey, in Claude, check this with Codex, get Codex's feedback, and then pipe it through my LLM console, where I have all of these different hats that these other agents are wearing to kind of control itself. The question here, Luke, is how does this work? How do you zoom in for a really small TAM? This comes up often because like anything you learn on LinkedIn is always like built for North America, where they've got like this infinite TAM, whereas you really can burn through your TAM here badly. But even within a smaller TAM, like in Australia, what happens when you have like really niche specific small audiences?
Yeah, I love this question, and I love your observation about it being A and Z based as well, Ricky. The tweak I would make, brought it back to the definition. You can still run this stuff, but I'd actually increase the human element to this. And so let's just say for argument's sake, it's 500. You can still run these mini campaigns that might go to 10 to 50 of the people within this audience. But because of the lower volume, you can personalize the messaging more. Like they might be connected to someone. You can be interested with your drafting, and you can probably add, a phone call or a text based on, what's happening with the replies. And I'd argue, provided it's thought out and well put together, you're going to get a better result than the bigger campaigns and audiences anyway, because you can add that extra element of human touch. Great question.
We got one more.
Oh,
If LinkedIn doesn't know mortgages, for example, but you have the Excel sheet of an RCP, where do you pick up where experts are teaching easier search industries? For example, the tech stack lookup tools are never industry specific, or the roles are harder to find when you can't teach these systems to find the companies using Clay or the world. Obviously, I'm just reading that live, and Michael,
yeah. No,
but you get the gist of it. I think like super common, where like, what do you do, I guess, when signals aren't accessible? Where do you go to for different data sources when, I don't know, sometimes LinkedIn's pretty useless?
Yeah, it can be. And, this is very common again in sort of construction and trades as well. So I'll just talk through some general ways to fact find and find some signal information. And then, if it's not useful enough, I'm happy to tailor an answer more specifically when offline. But things you can do, obviously LinkedIn's huge, but Google Maps is actually very powerful as well and can provide sort of signal information as well. Reviews is another. You can scrape reviews and sort of get different information as well. Job postings with industry jargon can be really key and critical. So, are jobs increasing or decreasing? Job data is universal usually for the industry and what's going on. There is domain specific information, like for real estate. Yeah, there is tools that help you scrape, the real.com.au's of the world. In wealth and mortgage and finance world, I know a lot of these sort of industries are more walled garden. The other tricks might be, what are they accounts? Are there any other industry influences they're following or your target can help reference? Again, this is what benefits from, say, the domain or industry knowledge, and then combining it with what the technical capability is. And we even learned this at Pointer. Like I came in and Ricky's like, "We've got this. Well, why aren't we doing this?" He's like, "We never thought to." So there's magic that happens finding those. Obviously, we're on LinkedIn now. Like there's a lot of LinkedIn specific information, but it is definitely all end all. And for super niche stuff, there's also that technographic sort of information you can get. Built with is one. There's more specific ones that you pay a premium for, but obviously the data's richer and you can do things with that too.
Yeah. Luke, I want to just dig in a little bit there. Firmable in particular has some useful niche specific lists. For example, a list of mortgage brokers. Like you can try build that list on LinkedIn, but there's actually better sources. In order to be a registered mortgage broker, or a master builder or anything similar, you're going to have a license. And there's companies there's websites you can go to check, hey, does my provider, are they licensed? And you can scrape that, or there's already tools that have done that. So knowing what data to target and how you might target it is a creative exercise. Then there's the practical exercise of how do we go about getting that data? And there are situations where that data collection can even be manual. It's also okay to include calling people as parts of this to say, hey, just curious, when is your contract up for renewal? And then that becomes part of a hack, a growth process that you start running. So how to target, there's the bottom up, there's the top down. Obviously, this is where experience like Marshy's is useful because, oh no, I know this tool. let's use estimate one to find out who's applying, things like that. But at the same time, it is just, and that's where it comes from, right, Marshy? Like every time it's like when we sent a newsletter 3 weeks ago and it was terrible, he says, I tell you what, episode 19 is going to be better than episode 1, right? Let's keep going. And all of these things, which is really impressive. But let's end the questions there. This has been really informative. The conversation carries on in go-to-market ANZ, WhatsApp chats. That's what this is for. It's operators talking to operators about how to get this stuff done. And there is no gating information. Like that's where we're able to actually share. This is the message we sent. Here's a screenshot of the CRM, all the stuff live. Get in and we're there to help. And if you are a company looking to do this, like you're starting to things.
Great.
Marshy, thank you as always. Everyone, we'll see you soon.